Hello, friends and family on Facebook. I don't know if I'll upload this to YouTube, but in any event, if you get bored and want to see me on YouTube or find some very interesting things as well, it's not only for the bored, believe me. My channel is at Michael Vanderpool on YouTube. Just search there, or TIGR7170. Last night, a convenience store here in Marshall, Missouri, a quick run. That's where you buy gas and get overpriced small amounts of groceries, so to speak, and a few other fun things like drinks, like coffee, sodas, whatever, and candy bars and such. It's where you stop and get gas generally, or a lot of people will stop and get cigarettes or whatever. That was robbed by a white male who was armed, in other words, at gunpoint. Now, that's what I was told by people reading the paper here. I myself have not taken the time or have had time to confirm that. Now, we are 3 hours from Ferguson, Missouri, or St. Louis, Missouri, about 3 hours drive, and that's by highway, Interstate 70. So that gives you an idea of where I'm currently at here in central Missouri, which is making worldwide headlines with its ongoing civil unrest there in the St. Louis area, or specifically Ferguson, Missouri. And I had stated earlier, since I've been here April of 2014 back in the United States of America, previously having been in the nation, or the Republic of Georgia, a lot of people have complained about the rather sudden increase in the price or costs of utilities like electricity. And also, we've seen a pretty good increase in food prices, all-time highs with beef and other foods that have gone up in price. In fact, this week here locally, I think I've noticed on a couple of items myself at a local superstore that the prices have gone up on just a couple of things that I myself purchased just within the last week. So that's interesting to note. I also encourage you to listen to the August 18th, 2014, The Liberty Man, John Moore, that's Moore, show. It's a talk radio show. You'll find it posted also on YouTube, and there's another radio show network that he is on as well. That same show, the Liberty Man, John Moore. We're at about 31 minutes into that August 18th, 2014 show. He states that his private source there in Ferguson, Missouri, states that he witnessed what was happening there was worse than what he had seen in his time in Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, that was a pretty profound statement coming the 31st minute to the 32nd minute of the Liberty Man, the John Moore show. So I encourage you to check that out. And again, you'll find that posted under the August 18th, 2014 radio show. He's posted up there on YouTube. We've got the lease for the Nice family with 4 children that have now leased for 1 year. The last of the Vanderpool properties that are available for rent here, they're all now rented and all now have 1 year leases on them. They're in just the vicinity of Missouri Valley College, and they always go very quickly. But again, thank you, friends and family on Facebook. A few of you passed that Facebook status that I put up when that house became available. It became available suddenly, unexpectedly, and it turned into a win-win situation for both parties involved. And I thank you, friends and family here on Facebook, because at least 3 different ones actually contacted me. 2 actually went and physically saw the property. Maybe a third actually said he was going to go see it. So that's the power of networking and today's modern technology, the positive side, one of the positive sides of it, here on Facebook. And in a little bit, I'll post the cash and the lease agreements, all now officiated, signed, and on a perfect astrological day, by the way. It happens to be a Venus trine Chiron in the sky above today and tomorrow as well, which is the 20th of August 2014. And I myself am also now peeking out in my own personal astrology with a Venus trine Chiron. So it's not the first time that we've done business through Facebook. This is on behalf of my father and again the Vanderpool properties. But I've also brought my former Georgian, very close friend, Nana, who was with the Vera Inn Hotel there in Vauquer. She had a very large house for rent, and Vauquer is one of the top residential and business districts in Tbilisi, the Republic of Georgia. And I had brought her at one time an entire family of people from Iran, Israel, Israeli Americans from California. They couldn't decide to meet any other place than Georgia, which was more neutral to their governments. Obviously, the USA, Israel, and Iran at that particular time, a few years back, were not in the best of comfort zones with each other, perhaps. So they felt more comfortable to meet right there in Tbilisi, having had some family ancestry there as well. And we brought Nana a few $1,000s in business to her guest house, as well as I think at least a handful of different people that had toured her house for rent there, which would range at the time initially at $2,000. I think after the global economic crisis, it might have went down a little bit cheaper than that. But typically, she was renting that for $2,000 a month. And had other friends here, and you know who you are, that watch my Facebook and check it out pretty frequently, daily actually, for the various news and comments and photos and videos that I share or myself now and then post here. And I remember this friend, Georgian friend, had some Turkish guests that stopped in and stayed there as well. So how many others came because of this notice? And my YouTube channel continues to get thousands of views every single month. I think last year it would average somewhere as close to 160,000 or more views per month on YouTube. So in any case, we're pretty safe here in Marshall, believe it or not, even though the Quick Run was robbed last night at gunpoint, I am told. Now again, that has to be confirmed in the local newspaper. And I'm not saying that that's absolutely true or not. I've had two different people, however, pick up, one person, actually two people, picked up the newspaper, were looking at that article, and then tell me that story from the Marshall Democrat News. So that tells us that when people are walking into a public place of business, private business, but to kind of more or less a public space, so to speak, private, public, however you want to put that, a place that's frequented by people where they go in to buy their gas, which is the majority of us that are driving cars here or trucks or whatever, automobiles. That's a dangerous situation. So everybody's got to be aware and got to be with whatever their plan of strategy to deal with such situations, because quite frankly, when we see that in the news with what's happening in St. Louis, it makes one very cognizant of the times that we are in. Now, blacklistednews.com or Blacklisted News website has an article that states that the European Union, the numbers for the EU, the economic indicators that were just released, and this article was published on the 16th of August 2014, are worse than the 1930s Great Economic Depression. And the author of that particular article that had reviewed the economic indicators, similar in what Gerald Salante of Future Trends is telling us about the economic collapse unfolding, and it's global. And it makes sense. Also, in addition to all the other factors involved, you've got this new set of factors with economic sanctions between Russia, EU, and the United States happening, and that crisis as well feeding into the whole economic challenge globally. So in any case, my family's been well prepared for this time in various ways, mentally and spiritually and psychologically. So it's a good time to work together more closely as neighbors, as friends, as family, as coworkers, as community. It's much better to get along than not to. And so this will be an interesting time. I talked about this in under Vanderpool, the astrology of power struggles. You put that search term into YouTube, you'll find my video made at Discovery Cafe back at the end of January 2014 about this time we are now entering. We'd actually really hit hard back in April, and that's about the time that all these hacking attacks took place on the United States, and maybe an EMP. It's still speculative as to the source and if that, the details about that, but at minimum, that's when the internet was 66% slower during that month, and it often would coincide with war games coming out of the East, these computer hack attacks. So these certainly have an economic fallout and an economic effect, as well as cost factors for security professionals and businesses and the top five internet companies as well. So, in fact, eBay itself was hit with some hacking problems in PayPal back in May. At least we got the notice to change our passwords, and I was just talking with those folks, technical support at eBay here just a couple of days ago, and I was told that some notices there were not correct. In fact, they've still got some issues. Whether that's connected with what I just mentioned or not is yet to be reported to my knowledge. So in any case, I'm here at Highland Home for Seniors in the office where I'm often at. I do the website for the business, provided the content for the business, the advertising. I also share on social networks what's happening here. Sometimes I'm helping out with the family businesses when I'm in Marshall, as I've done for years. I ran directly hands-on Vanderpool Care Incorporated, which was another residential care facility in the family for years, I think over maybe 2 or 3 decades. And I did that directly as an administrative assistant for 5 years, and also running a special program in part while doing that under the state of Missouri. So that was an interesting program that probably saved, I think we had 3 people for part of that time through that program, which saved the state approximately somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 per month per client. So that adds up pretty quickly. And anyway, today we're dealing with my mother's business is dealing with the seniors and senior care. It's similar to it is residential care, so that's similar to assisted living in a sense, but it's residential care. She herself is a nurse. Today I saw Dr. Paprick on just a normal follow-up visit down in Slater, Missouri, and was very happy to see they have a nice clinic there, the Aikman clinic, and it's through Fitzgibbon, and it was very nice to see him again. We've known each other for years. He used to come over to the business, Vanderpool Care Incorporated. He's been here at Highland Home for Seniors as well, and it was just really nice to see Dr. Paprick, and his staff was nice and friendly. We had some jokes together, and I told him, I said, when I was on the plane over the Caspian Sea, stopped in Baku, and then went over to Tbilisi, I was on there with Donald Rumsfeld and his family, his children. Now, Donald and his wife sat up in the front of the plane. There were only about 30 people on the plane, and to my left in the aisle seat was his daughters, and directly behind me was his son. And we had some small talk, and I said, hey, isn't that Donald Rumsfeld? And she said, yeah. And I said, I know him, and he's the author. I mean, I've heard of him, and I've watched him on TV, of course. Who hasn't, who's American? Or around the world, for that matter, if you watch international news. And so I said, well, he's the author of that great quote about known unknowns. And she goes, yes, well, he's come out with a book about that in that same title, that same name. And so I got the book later, and it confirmed to me that was indeed his daughters that I was speaking to, and his son behind me who I'd spoken to as we flew over the Caspian Sea and went through a thunderstorm, lightning, and things like that. It was incredible. My attitude changed a little bit, a greater amount of respect for Donald Rumsfeld and the service that at 84 years of age. I'm not sure if he was 84 in that particular time. It was just within the last 2 years or so that we were on that plane together into Tbilisi, and it was through a lightning and thunder, a rainstorm, thunderstorm, that we flew together on the same plane together into Tbilisi. So I had mentioned that to Dr. Paprick and made another little comment that I'll keep private, and he said he says, he goes, I have the book, the memoirs of Donald Rumsfeld, and so I just found that fascinating that my medical doctor, Dr. Paprick, would have that same book, which I myself purchased after flying with the Rumsfeld family and Donald himself into Tbilisi on the same jet. That is, there's only about 30 of us on that plane. So anyway, that was an interesting, a little interesting conversation that I had today. A little interesting trivia or travel experience, if you will, about me and about our country too. I would later remark on Facebook and sharing this story in text on Facebook that that was a very important night for me, that I flew in with one of the greatest families in American politics and business history, and we flew in together. We were the American family when we arrived that night in Tbilisi, the nation of Georgia, the Republic of Georgia. So in any case, I have a playlist on YouTube, Michael R. Vanderpool, Journalism, the Republic of Georgia, the American Press Association, and a couple of those videos are with the NATO Military Press Committee. That was done in part back in February earlier this year. And I had later visited the senators' staffers in Columbia, Missouri Senators, U.S. Senator Clara McCaskill's office, and also U.S. Senator Roy Blunt's office. They have both been in the news lately with some very interesting news, and I appreciate those staffers who had taken the time to allow me to submit the videos that I had made while in the Republic of Georgia, the nation of Georgia. I've been there for almost 5 years throughout a 10-year span, and did some filming at the Russian military occupation border, or so-called administrative line, where they were engaged at that time in the creeping occupation. And there was an outcry by basically the entire country of 4.5 million Georgians about that issue, or a large majority of those Georgians, back in October 2013, which in itself began a humanitarian crisis for the Georgians living in that conflict zone, that conflict area. So be sure to check that out on YouTube. Again, it's a playlist, Michael R. Vanderpool, Journalism in the Republic of Georgia. There's some very interesting videos there. Also with the NATO Military Press Committee events that I covered as well. So enjoy. It's a wonderful, beautiful day here in Missouri. I'm off to go get something from one of our shops here and take it over to the rental house that we just signed the 1-year lease on and collected rent for, and it's a win-win situation. And again, thank you, Facebook family and friends, for making that such a quick and good success for both parties involved. And we'll see what other news and events transpires this week. But as far as those of you that have told me that you're concerned about me here, my family, particularly from Georgia and the Ukraine, I can assure you that outside of the unfortunate but not exactly so much unusual events such as what happened here last night, we are 3 hours from St. Louis by drive. And so far, our community is very quiet and peaceful. Everybody seems to be in pretty good harmony, with the exception of the quick run being robbed last night. And unfortunately, that's not quite so unusual. It's a bit unusual, but it's not quite so unusual for this area. So let's just hope that law enforcement is able to have some good fortune and success in solving that particular problem. So in any case, thanks again, everybody, and have a great week. Enjoy. We are wrapping up summer 2014. Michael Vanderpool coming at you from Marshall, Missouri, Saline County, in the great American Midwest, USA. Highland Home for Seniors. Be sure to check us out if you have a family or loved one that needs that kind of care. Take care, and thanks for watching.